back to our session today about GT and student visas. We're joined by our experts from the Melbourne team today, and I have with me Mr. Kunal Verma, who's a registered migration agent at Aussies Group Melbourne, and he's one of our most experienced agents when it comes to everything related to student visas, any sort of ANSCO group codes and occupation ceiling, state nomination requirements, and he's helped numerous migrants settle down in Australia. So if you have any questions regarding today's topic or anything else, please leave them for him in the comment section below. And from the education team, today we're joined by Ms. Shruti Shah, who's based in Aussies Group Clayton. She is a QAC certified education counselor with 4 years of experience, and she's especially passionate about assisting international students with their careers and finding their future, pathways and career in Australia. So please welcome them on board. And Kunal, you can take over from here.
Thank you. Thank you, Didi, for introducing, and hello to everyone who is live right now. And I hope everyone is keeping safe with these lockdowns in Victoria, New South Wales. I hope everybody's trying to follow the guidelines, and we are all hoping everything should get back to normal soon. Everybody's, I hope, aiming to get their vaccinations done sooner than later, and we'll see life back to normal probably in the next couple of months. So we are live here today to discuss about certain student visa queries. We get a lot of clients who basically are enrolling into different courses at this point of time as well, or those who are still keen to come from overseas in terms of meeting their study or fulfill their study needs, and those who have an aspiration of setting down a career pathway in Australia, and they want to come down and study different courses across Australia. So what basically forms a student visa, when you come down from as an overseas student, what are the requirements of a student visa? What things one needs to take care of, when you are looking for applying for a student visa, and the associated factors. So through this live session today, I, along with Shruti, would like to take you through to the most important and the essential, criteria or parameters which would help you in, deciding on what you should be doing with your student visa application, how you should be looking at it. And we will cover the most important parts. And obviously, I would request, if you have got any questions, you can leave in the comment section. I would, or I, along with Shruti, would try and answer as much as possible. And if you're in any other state, or if you obviously see your question has not been answered, we would request you to contact our, your closest office, and there would be somebody who would be able to assist you regarding your query with regards to this or any other options which relates to migration, your citizenship, or student visa application, a course selection, anything which you think could be of nature, a migration in nature, and you would need our assistance for. So I am a registered migration agent. My MARA number is 1803861. And Shruti, who is an education counselor and certified education counselor, is also along with me today. So yes, let's go forward, Shruti. And then, so the most important part of a student visa application definitely is a GTE, which stands for the Genuine Temporary Entrant criteria. So when you're coming from overseas, or when you are an international student in Australia, the most important criteria which you need to satisfy is of being a genuine temporary entrant. What it means, obviously, the way it sounds as how are you able to prove that you are genuinely intending to stay here on a temporary basis? You're not willing to settle down here. So in order to, demonstrate that you are you satisfy the GTE criteria, or you are a genuine temporary entrant, there are certain criteria against which you have to demonstrate in terms with respect to the requirements which has been laid by the Department of Home Affairs. So what are the different factors which are involved with that? Again, factor number one basically is your circumstances in the home country. So if anyone who is willing to come here on a student visa or any temporary visa, The department wants you to demonstrate, and that is what you demonstrate by means of a write-up or by means of giving your documentary evidences which would demonstrate that you are a genuine temporary entrant. So the factor number one, which is your circumstances in home country, you have to demonstrate that. Factor two is your potential circumstances in Australia. How well would you establish yourself in Australia in case if you would come down here, or basically your chances of going down further on other visas. Those things are of importance as well. Factor number three, which is value of the course to the applicant's future. Now, if I take an example here, somebody who is coming down to study here a course, and has got no relevance to what their background is, then that is one of the things you really have to be careful about. So the value which you are going to be deriving out of the course is of utmost importance, and it should have a connecting factor to you as well. Now, the next bit is the factor four, which is the immigration history. With immigration history, if you have traveled to Australia before on any visa, if you have traveled to any other country for any visas, so that history is of importance as well. And then any other relevant matters. So any other relevant matters with respect to the visa. So with respect for the department to consider your situation. Uh, that is one bit you really have to take care of as well. Anything which is contributing in favor or in against your application. Those are the other parameters which would be considered by the department as well when they're assessing your GTE. So the circumstances in home country, as we've mentioned that, what are your circumstances in terms of what have you done back? To what level studies have you already pursued back in your home country? What's your family background in your home country? What's your academic performance in your home country? What exactly is your if you're working, then have you been working relevant in the relevant field? So the circumstances in home country examines the applicant's reason for not pursuing education in the home country. So obviously, we include the economic situation of ourselves, and obviously, the opportunity of courses back in the country. If how our personal ties are with the country, all that we demonstrate through the statement which we make. So what basically when we've mentioned about the red flags here as well. When we have mentioned red flags, the purpose of putting it here is that what basically can go against you in terms of when you're basically demonstrating these circumstances in your home country, what can go against if you're mentioning about that. So if there are similar courses available in the home country, then the department may consider that what is the reason for somebody to come here. So you basically have to demonstrate the reason for you come here to come to Australia is because there are no any similar courses which are available in the country you're coming from. The unemployment in home country. So obviously, if you're able to demonstrate, that there is high unemployment, and that's exactly what you're coming here for. And that completely defeats the purpose of you coming to Australia, because you're coming here on a student visa, which is with an intention to study, but not to work. But if your country has high unemployment, they may basically read it in a different way, that is the basis for you to come here. Income is much lower than the cost of living in Australia. So, we basically have to demonstrate that the funds or the income of anybody who is supporting you financially, or if you're supporting yourself, then it should not be less, or it should not be, it should substantiate to the cost of living in Australia. And that is where the requirements of, funds, which comes in a certain level of colleges or university, you have to demonstrate that you have access to that much funds, or if you will have availability of that much funds. So that has to be taken care of as well. Any military service commitments with you or your family, that would be of hindrance as well here. Any political geographical climates which could be which could be a reason for you to come down here, which could impact. And if you do not have enough family ties back home, so you definitely have to demonstrate that you have got good family ties, strong family ties back home, which would benefit them to understand that you would be leaving the country as soon as you would finish your studies, which was your first intention to come down to Australia. So when we are mentioning about these red flags, what we want you to do is address these points in such a way, if you're providing a GT, that it should cover up all these points, and this should basically come out as a complete statement from your end when you're addressing the part of circumstances in your home country. All right. So potential circumstances in Australia. So this demonstrates the incentives of an applicant to remain in Australia. So if I've come to Australia to study, do I have any reasons for not going back, or the circumstances of me being in Australia would overweigh the circumstances of back in my own country? So I'll have to keep that in mind, that I would strongly address this point. That so obviously we have mentioned about the red flags here. If you have got family members who have got any unfavorable visa histories, likely if they've come to Australia in the past, haven't maintained their visa conditions, if they have been able to jump on different visas while they have come to study here only. So anything which was not as planned, or which was not basically as the department sees you as a temporary entrant, then if you've got a family member or a number of family members with those histories, that could be a challenge. If you've got study history, incomplete courses, unrelated study, if you come over to study. So obviously study history means if you demonstrate that your history in Australia hasn't been the way you have planned or you have demonstrated at the first place. If you have taken up some courses but you haven't completed them for whatever reasons, and you've got unrelated study to what your background is. So pretty much if you have done some other study in the past from overseas or in Australia, and then you're taking up another course here which is not related to what you have done, that could be another reason as well for them to consider that your circumstances, or you're trying to basically obtain a visa only to extend your stay here. Staying inside Australia for long periods, again, as it says, if you're basically staying here for long periods without or continuously by applying student visas over and over again, that would demonstrate that you have an intention of settling here. Insufficient knowledge about Australia and the course. So, this is one bit which you always demonstrate through your, GTE statement, wherein you tell the department that why are you opting this course and what are the benefits are you going to be obtaining. So if you do not have enough knowledge of the course you're taking in Australia, that may definitely result in, them understanding that you are taking it, again, as I said, for the purpose of extending your stay here, but not with an intention of actually studying that or taking that course. All right, so I'll get Shruti to take over from this bit. She can explain on the factor 3 to you guys.
Thank you, Kunal. Hi, I'm Shruti Shah, a qualified education consultant at Ausis Group. So as Kunal has already explained, that GT is the most important document for student visa. So as per the GTE, the course selection is also an important factor in GTE as well. So here comes the role of education consultant. So while writing down your GTE, it is most important factor to mention your previous background, your employment background, or your education background. So when you are choosing any course, you have to relate the course to your background, which can be your employment background or your education background. So if student is coming from IT background, they can't directly go for a social work background. They have to relate a GTE why they are going for social work background, whether they have any work experience in between related to social work, and then we have to mention the evidence, employment history, and everything to relate that. And even while writing down a GT, I will always recommend student to go through the course, future outcome of the course. So just not writing down random numbers or salary structures and growth in the future. Just go through the real websites like Naukri.com or Glassdoor. Go through the salary structures while in your home country and over here in Australia. So always mention your future outcomes in terms of your salary, your companies where you can work in your home country, and how you will cover up the cost which you have already spent over here in Australia while studying. So you have to mention that as well, that you can earn this much amount of money going back to your home country, and you can cover the cost which you have already spend over here in Australia while 2 years of your study. So if someone is doing a bachelor's of nursing back home, and they can't they can't come here and study accounting, we have to relate a GTE and GT. So here you have to study something relevant to get the GT outcome positive. So here is the red flags as well. So courses unrelated to employment and an academic background, as I mentioned, that you have to study something relevant. If the course does not improve employment prospect in your home country, so someone is coming from a employment background, so you were earning as a medium salary over there in your home country, or you are coming over here to study a similar course and you can't get the better growth in your after completing your course structure. So you have to mention that you will get a better growth in your field as well after getting the international degree. And here unexpected remuneration on the course completion. So you can't write down a random numbers that you will get this much salary back home, or you will earn over here while on your temporary residency. So it is better advice, and it is recommended to go through the relevant course structures and just figure out something and do a maximum research on your future outcome as well, and mention that in your GTE as well. So after that, Kunal will explain.
Thanks, Shruti. All right. So the next part, which is the most important bit, I would say, which is the immigration history. And you, as an applicant, you definitely need to make sure that, the history of, your immigration towards Australia or any other country should not reflect anything negative to the department, and you could use it to your advantage instead, rather than it would become a disadvantage towards getting the student visa. So what it examines is anything in the applicant's immigration history not supporting their intent to stay in Australia on a temporary basis. So again, if you have traveled in Australia before, have extended your visas, say if you've come on a visitor visa before, have extended it again here, to further apply for another visitor here, or if you have come in the past as a student here and haven't been able to finish off studies, or been able to leave the country within the allowed visa period, all those sort of things would have an impact. So what are the red flags? So previous visa refusals, as I said, in Australia, or trying to re-enter as a student dependent. Now consider, you have had a refusal of your own student visa in the past, and now you're coming as a dependent to somebody else, to your partner, to someone who you are married to. So that is definitely, a red flag to them, because they look at such circumstances as a way of, getting a way to come to Australia. Any non-compliance of visa conditions in the past, if you've done, that could be a challenge. So if you've not maintained any of your visa conditions when you've come here before on any visa, enrolling in short or inexpensive courses that extend their stay. So if you have come to Australia to study a specific course, but after you finishing even that course, or without finishing that course, you've ended up, getting into some smaller short duration courses, which were just going to be, buying you time over to stay here. That is again one of the red flags in terms of your immigration history, factor. So other relevant matters, as mentioned before, this includes any other relevant matter that department may consider when they review your application or your genuineness to stay in Australia temporarily. So if you are coming through with any other, if you're proving them that you're coming here to study, but there are certain factors which relates to your family background, back in the country, or any commitments which you might have against which, as I said, it would be weighed against your statement. That could become a reason for you to, get a refusal, or get a refusal based on genuine temporary entrant criteria. So the red flags used as an assessment factor only under limited circumstances. So when we say other relevant matters, we have covered most of the important relevant matters here. But if anything, what's left, which could still, as I mentioned before, could add up towards your genuineness of being a student here, that would be considered in these scenarios, which I said, your family, circumstances back in your country, or anything which you would demonstrate as a reason for you to come down here, which is against the criteria of a student visa grant. So there is some objective evidence or reason to doubt the applicant genuineness as a student. So obviously, a case officer, immigration officers do have the right to obviously, assess any other relevant matter if they would believe that is there, in order to assess your, other relevant matters, and then that may come out as a, a decision which is what we are not expecting, if anything which they found is, there in your application. All right, so these are basically the areas. Shruti can basically discuss about them and give you an overview.
As Kunal has already explained us each and every areas in detail, so I'll just summarize it. So these are the areas where high relevancy of GT assessment. So employment, as I mentioned, that it should be relevant to your previous employment or your future employment, where you have to mention it properly. So your academic history, same as when you are choosing any course, you have to choose a course which is relevant to your previous study or which is relevant to your current studies. When student is onshore and they are changing the course, you have to change the course according to your academic history or your employment history over here in Australia as well. Length of stay in Australia. So as Kunal has explained, if you are trying to just stay on stay over here in Australia on different visas, it might be a GT factor for your visa outcome as well. Family and social ties. So it is always recommended to the student to show the family or financial ties in a GT as well. So it can, in GT, it is also considerable that how many times you traveled back home, and it can show that in within 5 years, if you traveled back home 2-3 times, it can show that you have a family ties or you have a financial ties back home. So you always traveled back and look after your parents or look after your property. Relationship status, it is also a considerable factor when it comes to when there is a student who came here over here Australia on student visa, then they go for a TR, and again student dependent, TR dependent, it is also considered as a GT factor while lodging your third or fourth student visa. Travel history. So we always recommend student to like when you are lodging visa, you have to mention your travel history, how many times you travel back, and how many other countries you traveled. You have any visa rejection for any other countries as well. Long-term visas. So while on student visas, so many students, they apply on for 190, 491 or other permanent residency visas as well. It's fine, you can apply, but while applying for student visa, you have to mention why you want this student visa and why you wanted to study again. Past visa applications or refusals. So in your GT or while applying your second or third student visa, you have to mention your refusals, whether it is on visitor visa, student visa, or any other dependent visas. You have to mention that in your GT. So GT document structure. So I will always recommend students to write down your personal statement by yourself only. Do not reliable to anyone which is authorized writer or authorized agent for that, but always go through your SOP by yourself also. So it will be in your SOP, you have to mention your personal information, your family background in detail to show that you have a family ties and how you are in your future, or how you are with your career as well. Even academic background with the dates when you have completed, when you have started, with the grades as well. So how you performed in your previous education. Your employment background, if you have any employment history, you have to mention those employment histories with dates and position and with companies. So it can show there is a no gap in between your study and your next study. Relevance of background to chosen course. So as I already mentioned, that you have to choose a course which is relevant to your previous study and which can be relevant to your future outcome as well. Why Australia? So when you are coming to Australia, you have to mention why you wanted to study in Australia. It's not just like you can mention that it is a multicultural company and you wanted to study. So these are the basic, even anyone can Google and anyone can write down. So go in a detail with the course, how this course can be helpful to you while if you will study this course in Australia or other country. So I will always recommend to do a deep research on why you want to study this course, particularly in Australia, and even why this education provider. So there are ample of providers over here in Australia who can provide you any like IT course. If you take the IT course, you can study it in any university in Australia. But why you want to study particular course in a particular university? So there will be some specifications about that course for that particular university. So you have to mention those points in your GT. And why this course? So in why this course, you have to mention that your future outcome, why you wanted to do this course, what are the other factors to do this course, like your past study, your previous employment, or your family business. Value of course to career prospect in your home country. So as I mentioned, you have to do a deep research, go through the different job website to compare your salary outcome over here in Australia, over there in your home country, and mention all those numbers with appendix. Like you have to attach the particular numbers and website names as well, that you gone through this website, you compare your salary structure, and you also compare the companies and internet MNC companies, you can get the employment in those companies. And statistics, so you have to mention demand and value of qualification, ability of positions, and expected salary. Ability of a similar course in your home country and why you wanted to study this course, particularly in Australia. You can compare it with the third country as well. So why you don't want to study this course instead of Canada or USA, especially in Australia. Family ties and financial ties and social ties. You have to mention that you have properties and family back home you wanted to look after. Gap in studies. So while changing course over here in onshore, so you have to mention if you haven't studied for 3 months, why you didn't study for 3 months, or if you are changing a course and you didn't do last semester, what are the reasons why you didn't do last semester? What are the poor academics, or what are the reasons for not performing well in previous academic as well? Change in study plans or courses. So there are so many students who are changing their course from higher studies to vocational level courses. So, but while lodging your visa, you have to mention that you were working and you got interest in the same field. So that's why you wanted to change. Attach evidentiary documents with the same. So as I mentioned, if you wanted to change the course, if you are working in same field, you have to attach salary slip or job offer letter, referral letter. So a case officer can relate that, oh, student is working in the same field. That's why he wanted to enhance his career and get the skills and get this course. So thank you.
Thanks, Shruti. So guys, again, while we are obviously explaining this all bit in detail, the purpose is obviously a lot of people at this point of time, while they are not certain about what are going to be their further visa options, how are they going to sail through with limited invitations across different state nominations. A lot of people come and consult us regarding what courses they should be doing while they have already finished a higher level of study here, and they still have an intention of studying something else or pretty much staying here until they are working out. So see, a student visa basically is at any point of time when you're applying for this visa, you need to make sure that your criteria are not going to change. If I'm applying from overseas, if I'm applying from onshore, I might have a different assessment category, because while I've already started here, or if I'm in Australia, might be I would have a certain leeway, but you will always have to go through the same requirements or the basis or the criterias which is there for the student visas. So that is going to help you to understand, what sort of courses you should be going for, what to do and what not to do. As such, that is what we are covering in detail right now. So GTE for family members, again, is also important. It's not that if I have a spouse, if I have got kids, we also have to demonstrate that what is going to be their circumstances in Australia, back in the country, their immigration history, basically, if they have been studying, if they are, if they're on the school going age or the college age. And again, the if obviously if the applicant is a minor, the intentions of a parent or spouse partner of the applicant. So what are the intentions for us in terms of when we go back, how are we going to look after their studies and other bit as well? Because they really want to understand, are you really keen on looking after their future as well, or the statement is not evolving somewhere around wherein it does not demonstrate that you really are trying to get them here for as long as possible and get them to study here by means of extending your visas or whatnot. That could basically be a reason for them to sort of a red flag for you, for the family member. And again, any other relevant matter which is not mentioned above, which could be case specific, which can be a part of it as well. Now, the student visa conditions. I believe there is a lot of chaos around these days when specifically when people are applying for student visa extensions. When they're applying for any other visa, they're jumping from student visa to another student visa when they're extending their study, or they're taking another course here. When they're applying for student visa after finishing their temporary graduate visas, when they're applying their extension here of why they're not been able to complete their studies. So at a lot of times, conditions are something which are of utmost importance, which is what a visa applicant has to abide by in all circumstances to ensure that they do not have their visas being cancelled, because these conditions are specific to every visa which has been granted to you while you're in Australia. I need you to ensure that you are fulfilling or meeting the visa conditions to make sure that your future visas, if you're intending to apply any, should not be impacted, because at any point of time, if you would have a cancellation of a visa onshore, that may also result in affecting your future applications which you can apply. So 8105, which is one of the most important condition, which I would say, which is there on a student visa, which is pertaining to the work rights of students. Now, at a lot of times, we have come across students who are not sure of when exactly this condition is in effect, whether this condition is going to be, if they're in this situation or it would be not. So I'm going to read out for you what exactly the condition says and how you can use it basically, or understand it so that you are aware of how does it work. So the holder must not engage into any work in Australia before the holder's course study commences. Now, what it literally means is if you've come down to Australia from overseas and your course hasn't started, but you have already been given a visa and you've come to Australia, or you are holding a student visa and you're onshore and your course has not started, and this condition is there on your visa, so you cannot basically start working. That is what you really have to make sure. Uh, the So basically you need not have a requirement of this when you have finished your studies. So again, if I've already finished my studies and there is no course in session, then I can obviously, this condition doesn't have a role to play. It is only when you have got a student visa in in hand and you are studying or your course has not started. That's the statement which I've confirmed, that the holder must not engage in any work in Australia before the holder's course of study commences. Now, there's another part to this condition itself, which says subject to subclause 2, the holder must not engage for more than 40 hours a fortnight during any fortnight when the holder's course of study or training is in session, which is what I just said. If you are pursuing a course and it has not finished, you cannot work more than 40 hours in a fortnight. A fortnight means obviously a period of 14 days. You cannot work for more than 40 hours a fortnight, or 2 weeks, you call that. So, and this does not allow in only circumstances wherein you are working, which is a work related to a part of your study or the CRICO study you have enrolled in itself. So if I'm doing a course which has a part to it wherein I'm required to work as well, which is a placement which is a part of my study, then I can work more than the allowed hours, but only if it is a part of the CRICO study which I've enrolled for. So to work, that was specified as a requirement of the course when the course particulars were entered in Commonwealth, which is the CRICOS, and it was a part of the course itself. And if your student visa was granted for a master's degree by research or a doctorate degree, then if the holder has commenced the master's degree, then obviously the situation or the condition stays as well. You can work more than the 40 hours because if you are studying here a course which is master's by research or a PhD course, which is a doctorate course, then you're allowed to work more than the 40 hours a fortnight. So that basically is in line with the work rights of students here. So the condition 8105, come across all the student visas which gets granted here. They have the condition 8105, which is related to the work rights of students. And now, again, to answer that, if you're finished a study and after you have applied for any other visa, and when you've realized that the visa which you have applied still has a condition 8105, I'll give you an example here. You have applied for a visa which is a COVID visa because you're working in one of the essential or the critical sector here, and since you've applied after you finish your study and you were on a student visa or you had a condition 8105, then if your course is not in session, then and you've already finished that study, then obviously you do not this condition does not basically applies to you, and you can obviously work once you've applied. If the course is in session, definitely you cannot work for more than 40 hours. That's what you have to make sure of. Next condition, which is 8104, which is for work rights of your dependent. Obviously, if you have come here or you've applied a student visa and you have got a dependent with you, you need to make sure their work rights are also is in line with the study or the level of study you have taken. So when it says that the condition is there on your visa, which is 8104, the holder must not engage in work for more than 40 hours a fortnight while the holder is in Australia. So you can't work for more than 40 hours a fortnight based on this condition 8104. If the holder is a member of family unit of a person who satisfies the primary criteria for the grant of student visa, the holder must not engage in work in Australia until the person who satisfies the primary criteria has commenced course of study. Again, the same thing, until obviously the course has started, the dependent basically cannot also work for or start work, because obviously the visa has been given to the applicant or dependent only because of the reasons, which is the study you have come to do in Australia. Now, again, if the course of study is for the award of a master's or doctorate degree, then the dependent can work, more than 40 hours a fortnight. So ideally, most of the master's graduates who have got their dependents here or any above study which is above master's, if you are enrolled and you have a dependent, they usually you would not see this condition would be there on your visa grant itself. The next condition, which is I-202, very, very important condition for ensuring you have you're maintaining your enrollment, you're keeping a higher percentage of your attendance and attending your classes and maintaining good academic progress. These are the things which you are required to maintain as well as a part of the condition 8202. So basically, if you are studying any course, you need to ensure that you are always enrolled into a course. And as a part of if your condition stays 8202 on the visa you've got, you must be enrolled in the CRICOS registered course all the time. And obviously, when I say CRICOS, it obviously has to be a registered course, within the Australian qualification framework. And again, there are quite a few factors which are to be taken care of when we talk about this. But again, to brief you about, you need to be ensuring that you are not staying without any enrollment, without beyond a certain period of time. you need to make sure that your college or universities has the right to, inform the department in case of any lack in the academic progress. If you have failed more than certain units, or if you have not been attending classes beyond a certain percentage, they are obviously, you're obliged under this condition to ensure you maintain a certain percentage. And obviously at times your colleges do send emails. They do inform you that we are finding out that this is what you are not been progressing academically, and we would need to inform the department. So this condition is very important in case if you are not performing or doing your study as per the requirements. 8501, I believe most of you are who are on the visas are aware that yes, maintaining the health insurance is one of the important bits. So you need to ensure that the overseas student health cover, is maintained as and when you are on a student visa, and you're maintaining a proper cover for yourself or and all your dependents. That's extremely important. And again, a case officer has a right, if you have applied for a visa and on request, if you will not provide them the required insurance, they may can refuse your application as well. And if you're not maintaining while holding a visa, they have a right to ask you to provide a document, or may can cancel it for you as well. Beyond that, so obviously continue to satisfy primary grant criteria. So obviously you secondary applicant, you have to make sure that the basis of the student visa is always being looked after. You don't have to deviate to do something else, and do not basically do the main reason you've come to Australia, or if you have a condition which says that you have to maintain your enrollment of study, so that has to be maintained all the time. 8517 and 8518, which are the schooling of school age dependents. So you have to provide them that you have made adequate arrangements of ensuring your school age dependents are enrolled into schools. They're very particular that you can't basically, if you're in Australia on this visa for more than 3 months, you can't have a circumstance wherein you not enrolling your children to go to school if they are of the age of school in Australia. And you need to maintain that a proper registration for them for the studies and everything is maintained as well all the time. And you need to provide the documents in case if asked for during the time of your application. We always provide these sort of documents, which is for the enrollment of your children to schools. Or if again the department would anytime find out you are not maintaining that requirements, then they can always come back to ask for it. The 8533, which is just to notify the provider of your address and contact information. So make sure that you are always informing your provider of your exact and the current information which relates to your address and the contact information. Any sort of notifications they are supposed to send, they should have those details for you, and that's also again one of the conditions which are there on the student visas. All right. So yes, so we do get a lot of questions. Again, when students are doubtful and they do ask what can be done in these sort of scenarios and circumstances. So what are the times when my course is considered out of session where I can work full time? So a course is considered out of session because we get a lot of students who really want to work full time as and when they usually get a break from their studies. But is that actually considered to be a break, or is that actually a period of out of session? You should really be aware of it because that may result in you getting a department natural justice request, or basically if they found out they are working more than the allowed hours, then what your condition allows you, they may can cancel your visa as well. So you need to be very, very, vigilant about not breaching this condition, because anytime if somebody reports that you've been working more than the allowed hours, that may have, serious consequences on your visa, which is what you would not want if you have an intention of, completing your studies or any future options in Australia. So when is the course in session? So obviously for the duration, you have got to know that you are going to finish a course after a certain date. So it is in session up until you have finished the exams and obviously you're just awaiting for the results. So it says for the duration of the advertised semesters, including period when exams are being held. So when the exams are being held, you are still in session. If a student is undertaking another course during a break from their main course, and the points will be credited towards the main course. So you are still going to be in session if you are considering that you are enrolling into another course, not into just this course. And that is going to be a part of, you're going to count it towards your meeting your study requirements here. Out of session, what are the points for out of session? So during scheduled course breaks, so obviously you get an email, you get confirmation from your colleges that, okay, we will not have any classes during this period. That could be after you have got your results, after you've got, you've written all your exams, and there is going to be no classes, there would be no exams happening. If the course has been deferred or suspended in line with, there is a standard 9, which is, the National Code of Practice. So if you've obviously suspended according to that, then if a student has completed their course as scheduled, as per the dates listed on their COE, and still holds a valid student visa. Now, this is the most important part, when you have finished your studies, after you finish your studies and you're waiting your results, then the next step is obviously for you to apply for your TR or pretty much any other visa if you're intending to apply here or basically leave the country. If your COE date has been, if you finished that course as per your COE date, then the course is not in session. If a student enrollment has been cancelled due to the default of their education provider until they secure an alternative enrollment. So yes, if your if your course provider has defaulted in, continuing your COE, then that's another situation in which you would be considered as out of session. Next, I am on TR. Can I start a new course? Well, when you get the temporary residency, it comes up with limited conditions, which does not obviously stop you from studying full time. It doesn't stop you from taking another course or any other study. So the answer is yes. If you're on TR, you can start a new course. That could be any level of study you want to do, as far as, because when you're on TR, there is no minimum requirement or a level of study you have to maintain. So if you have come here to study masters, and while you're on TR, you want to do any sort of a diploma level course, you can always do that. There is never no to that, because a TR does not restrict you to do the same level of study which you have done on your masters. If in case you want to use it as a way of getting another student visa after your TR, then you have to keep in mind that the level of study may have a role to play there. But yes, if it is during the TR itself, yes, you would not have a problem. Can I fast track my course while on student visa? Look, there is no problem in fast tracking a course, but in case if you are fast tracking a course and finishing it before your actual COE expiry date, then you are left with two choices. Either you would leave the country within 28 days, because if you would not have a COE for 28 days, then the department may come back, because you've already finished the COE, you've already finished the course, it's all been sorted for you. And you have no plans of doing anything else here. Then you should either leave the country within 28 days, or basically, if you want to study something else, you should apply for another visa here. So if you want to apply or take another course and you're fast tracked your studies because of you want to do some other study, make sure you have got plans or a COE which is taken for another course. You applied for the next visa to make sure that it is not, you're not getting impacted by any sort of repercussions based on that. And another thing is a lot of people usually fast track their studies, because they really believe, this is what we have already studied in the past. I don't think so. I should take this long to finish. Let me quickly work around on my next options. Let me quickly apply for my TR. You need to make sure there is a specific time which one has to spend in Australia as well in order to apply for the temporary residency. So 16 calendar month period was, obviously during the concession period, that would not be applied. But yes, if you are considering to apply, in the standard scenarios or in future, do not try and fast track by finishing studies, wherein your stay in Australia would not even sum up to 16 calendar months. So it is better to have the complete period of study if you have any intentions of doing any further visas, or if you do not have any intentions of applying any other study in future. Can I claim credits for my overseas degree? in my current degree? If so, to what extent? Again, claiming credits is not a problem if you are only willing to be in Australia to study a specific course, which is what you would be using it to your advantage when you return back to your country. So if you're coming from a country wherein there was something which you thought of studying, which could have given you some academic advantage, which would have given you some career progression, and you want to quickly finish it, yes, it is no problem for you to finish that quicker, because you would still get the same qualification by finishing it, by getting those credits from your overseas studies. But again, if your intention is moving from here to another temporary graduate visa, if you claim credits beyond a certain number, then, or if you claim credits for more than what would basically cover up or meet the requirements for your next visa, that could be a problem. So that is where you have to be very, very careful of claiming credits for your overseas degree, overseas qualification. Another point which you need to be careful of is, usually shorter duration courses sometimes do not even gives you the point contribution towards the Australian study requirement, because they have a specific time period for which one has to study here and meet the. So when you say Australian study requirement, so it could not even have a benefit of you meeting the Australian study requirement, because the course which you have taken has a course registration of lesser than what exactly you have studied. So keep it in mind that you have to have a lot of points you need to cover up. So if you've got to study here for 2 years, complete it in 2 years, do 4 semesters, and you can take the limited number of credits. Say if it is not cutting down on one complete semester for you, it should be fine, and you can still do the temporary residency with that. But if you have started 3 semesters instead of 4 semester study here, that may have an issue in you applying the temporary graduate visa in future as well. I'm changing my course and education provider. Am I breaching my visa condition? Well, look, if you are just changing the course and education provider, and that course is of the same level, which is what you have enrolled at the first place, then you are not breaching the condition. So you are required to maintain enrollment in a course at the same level or higher level of Australian qualification framework level, which based on which you were granted the visa. Transferring to a lower level of course of study may result in the breach of condition 8202. The exception to this is only from AQF level 10 to 9, which is basically from a PhD level when you're coming down to any level, AQF level 9. But if you obviously are a bachelor students and enrolling yourself into a diploma level or a certificate level course, then you are in the breach of the conditions. So you basically, the condition 8202 we have discussed just before, that is one of the important conditions which you really have to ensure you are abiding by, and may result in, and we've got a lot of clients coming to, who come and ask us, we have come here to study masters, can't do that. Can we go and study certificate 3? If you are intending to change, or if you're intending to basically study anything at a lower level, apply for another visa, and once that visa is granted, you can start that course. But you do not basically start a lower level of study, or you can basically run a parallel study if you really want to do it as a progression of towards your academic, or anything which could be benefiting you in terms of your career. But either you maintain the same level of study along with that low level study, or you apply for another visa based on that lower level of study. That is what you need to maintain. But if you're just changing the course and provider, then it should not be a problem. I intend to lower my education level and study a lower level AQF course. What are my options? So I've answered that bit already. So again, if you're trying to lower level of, so you need to apply for another visa, and ensure that by the time you're applying, you're maintaining the level of study for yourself. Right, guys. So am I allowed to take a break from studies while studying on student visa? Wow, that's one bit. There is always saying that you are not obviously. I mean, you've come here. Uh, uh, how should I basically portray that? When you're taking breaks from study, you're basically, you've answered that bit in the GT itself, that your intention is to study here. You've not come here just to uh, you know uh, take breaks. So it could be impacting on your GT, which you have given as a statement. So definitely, you need to ensure that if you're taking breaks, it should not be prolonged breaks, because that could obviously have an impact on your student visa. Again, unless if it's a deferment which you have been approved for, unless it's a break which has been approved by your education provider, that is all fine. Unless it is for some reasons which is once off, or basically which has not been of continuous in nature, it is fine. But if you're going on a regular break, that could have an impact on your, the GT statement which you have provided. So that could have an impact on your visa.
Kunal, about 2 questions.
Yep. Yes, please.
No. Above 2 questions are pending.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I think I've already covered those ones. I have completed my current course. How soon I have to start my next course while on a student visa? Right. So basically, as per the department, they do allow you a certain period of time, and that period of time has been given to you in consideration that there is always a situation wherein you will not have the next course starting straight away once you finish off. So with the package courses, we come across a lot of scenarios when it's a certificate 3 4 and a diploma, and there are always gaps in between. So students who are applying for a package course may do so, provided that there is not more than 2 calendar months elapsed between courses during the standard teaching year, and not more than 4 months elapsed if it's obviously outside the standard academic year, that is during the Christmas break. So either 2 months if it's during the standard, say obviously if my studies has finished in March, I should have the next course starting, within 2 months, say it will be by the end of May itself. But obviously if my course is finishing around October, November, and if obviously the Christmas period falls in between, I can have next, which could start from March as well, depending on if it is within the 4 months of period. So that's the allowed period. And yeah, one should keep in mind, when you're taking the COEs, it should basically abide by it, because prolonged gap course or next course will may have a result, as in you're buying time, obviously, to extend your stay here. I have a gap in my COE beyond the acceptable limits. What are my options? Well, obviously, if it is something which is beyond, your control, or there is not much you can do around it, we've seen department has mentioned that you can always take some sort of, course which is, to cover up the gap in between as well. So if the student has an extended course gap, that may lead to their visa being, cancelled. They may choose to enroll in a short course which is going to be helping you to fill the gap. Now this can be for any other course which you think could be of an advantage to the course which is going to start later. It could be an LE course if you think your English has been always of concern. Any vocational course which you think could be of an advantage to you. In my opinion, it is always better to take something which has some sort of relevance to the next level course, because otherwise department may have an issue in understanding why exactly are you taking something. So if I'm taking masters of engineering, in between I would take a course or a certificate course or anything which is to do with painting will not have a relevance. So I obviously have to make sure that it has some sort of a relevance. B, I would take in terms of project management. B, something which would be of English language, as I said, or a vocational course. That is one part you can basically look at, which could help you. Does the work rights kick off immediately once the student visa is granted? Okay, now basically, any point of time when you are applying for any visa while you're onshore, example. So obviously, when you're coming from overseas, I've told you the 8105 does have its own role restrictions to play in. So the work rights, if you're applying from the previous visa,
and so up until your student visa is granted, and your previous visa obviously has full-time work rights, and you got a bridging visa which has the full-time work rights with it, definitely, as soon as your visa is granted, your work rights would be, reduced down to whatever the condition would be there on the grant of the student visa. So if you've got the student visa granted, which is not specifying anything about the working hours, or the condition does not. So because if you're taking a master's by research or a PhD course, then there is no problem with that at all. But yes, as soon as your visa is granted, you definitely have to look at what conditions it has, and it's obviously restricting you to work only for 40 hours a fortnight. You have to ensure that you are abiding with that. What is the significance of 28 days in student visa? Now, very, very important thing. I don't see a lot of people would really would really know about this 28 days significance. So two things again I've mentioned. I'll talk about the easier bit first, or one thing, which is that if you're not maintaining a study, if you've got 28 days, or if you're finishing your study earlier than the allocated COE, and you've got 28 days to either leave the country or apply for another visa, or wherein we're talking about the significance here, we are basically talking about some other bit. We are basically talking about the option that if the applicant, when you're applying for a student visa, and say, for instance, you have missed the previous visa, so you were on a student visa and you did not realize that student visa has expired. So there is one of opportunity which you get, if you are not holding a substantive visa, and for applying another student visa, and the last substantive visa you've held was a student visa, a special purpose visa, a diplomatic temporary visa granted on the basis of being a spouse or a dependent of a diplomat, then you can apply for another student visa within 28 days. And it must be within 28 days when the last substantive visa ceased to be in effect, or if that last substantive visa was cancelled and the tribunal set aside and substituted the cancellation decision. So, just to give you an understanding, so if you've held a student visa and you forgot that your visa expires on an X date, and after your visa expiry, it was a student visa which you have held, and now you are willing to apply for another student visa, then you are given once off only 28 days to be able to apply for another student visa, but that has to be made within 28 days itself. So you can keep that in mind. Obviously, if in case somehow that situation comes in, obviously we would refrain on giving any advice that you should do it as a practice, because there would be associated conditions with it, which would be of concern. So definitely you should really consider that as an option only in case if you've forgotten to do that. Right. Again, so when transitioning from one visa into student visa or vice versa. So I'm transitioning from TR to student visa. What are my work rights in the interim bridging visa period? Well, I would advise each one of you to make sure, if you're applying for a visa, just look at the bridging visa conditions which you would get on it. Because as a general rule, I would not want to give you as advice that it should be followed. But yes, if the bridging visa has been granted with certain conditions, you have to make sure you look at that bridging visa and then go by those conditions itself. But if I have to give you a general response to this question, that if you're transitioning from TR, and obviously your TR has got full-time work rights with you for you. So when you're moving from that TR and you've applied for a student visa, the bridging visa in most circumstances will be granted will have you full-time work rights, or it would not have any restrictions for you to work limited hours. So and we have just got that question before that, if the time when your student visa will be granted, obviously then your work rights would be reduced down, or as per the condition on that student visa, which may be 40 hours a fortnight. I am transitioning from student dependent to student visa. What is my work rights? So when you were a student dependent and you are basically applying for a student visa as a student dependent, if you were, again, if you're applying as an individual applicant again, and the previous visa, when you were a dependent, the course obviously is again, I believe there would not be any restrictions if you are a dependent. I mean, there would be restrictions if you're a dependent for somebody who has doing a diploma or a bachelor's, and that would have its condition 8104, as I mentioned. It would be there, and so you have to maintain those conditions or restrictions. Up until, as I said, the course is in place. So you have to make sure the conditions which you would get on your bridging is what you should look at. And when you would get that student visa granted, you would still have if your work rights would be 40 hours a fortnight because you have yourself become a student, or if you have become a student for a research or a PhD course, you would get full-time rights. But yes, if you're student dependent, as a student dependent, if you have got conditions and your main applicant course is in progress and you've still applied for a student visa, you would be still bound by the condition 8104, and you might have to continue working 40 hours a fortnight itself. But just make sure you look at your bridging visa, as I said at the beginning itself. That's the key of making a decision on that. I am transitioning from student visa to a permanent visa. What is my work right during the bridging visa period? Now, again, if your course is not in session, again, we have answered that bit in the 8105, that you may not have, you may have an option to work full-time after your course is finished. But if your course is in session and you apply for a permanent visa, you would have the work rights of whatever visa you are currently holding. So, if it's about the bridging period, if you're finished that study, then you may not have those conditions which would stop you to work full-time. But obviously, if it comes likely with a condition which is restricting you to work, again, as I said, if it's the course which has finished, you anyways do not have 8105 in place, so you can obviously work full-time. But otherwise, if there would be any condition which is restricting you because the course is there, and the bridging visa, again, if it's not come into effect, then you will have to meet the requirements of whatever conditions would be there on the bridging visa grant. If the bridging visa, because most of the times, we apply for a visa when we are holding a visa with us, and the bridging visa does not come into effect. So the bridging visa would come into effect only once the substantive visa which we have held in the past will finish. That's when the bridging visa would come in effect, and that would accordingly have a change in the conditions. If your studies are also still in session in that time. So that's exactly we would want to cover for today with respect to the student visa, the GTE criteria, the conditions which are associated with it. And I believe we have got a couple of questions which we can answer definitely. I'm just covering a complete different bit today because usually I've seen, when it comes to anything which is related to skilled visas, state nominations, obviously the curiosity is there. But I believe this is basically a pathway for all those options, because for those who have been, in Australia for a longer time, haven't been able to finalize their permanent residencies or able to get what exactly they have come for, then those applicants have at times, gone through this situation, which relates to GTE criteria, which relates to the conditions on the visas. And definitely, they have these concerns, which we always thought of addressing. So you can always contact us, to ask any more questions you have regarding this, and we are happy to help. So we've got Preeti asking that, hi, has childcare study visa has work scope in Australia if we go with that? So Preeti, yes, if you are intending to do any study which is related to childcare, so you've got an option of doing a diploma, you've got an option of becoming, doing a bachelor's or a master's as well to that level. So childcare as an educator, early childhood teacher, childcare center managers, these are all occupations which do exist, and they are obviously available on the medium to long term list as well. And we've got a couple which is for childcare, which are on the short term as well. So yes, depending on what level of study you want to do, you always have an option of applying, permanent residency. And again, the educators through the early childhood program has been opened by Victoria State as well now under the workforce skill pathway, which is again a very good advantage for early childhood teachers, those who have done their graduate diplomas, because I remember of 2017-18, a lot of early childhood teachers have come up again because of, there were easier pathways available at that time for getting permanent residency. And definitely, if you're intending to go do this in Victoria or in any other state, just do obviously discuss the options with us, and then understand which state has an opportunity for you based on this study, and you can go ahead with it. We've got Jasveer as well. Is there any points that are of matter for 190 visa in Victoria? So Jasveer, the last update we have got from Victoria State, they have advised that they have only invited so far 170 applicants, and majority of them were from the engineering background, and majorly they have invited applicants those who have 90 plus state nomination points. So definitely what it means is, if the state nomination is, even they've started to invite applicants for now, but 170 across 2 months is too less of a number. So we are definitely, assuming that they will start inviting applicants with lesser points as well. That's going to happen. But yes, if you do have an opportunity of increasing your points, if there is something which is still not being covered from your end, likely for PTE scores, likely for NATI, likely gaining experience points, I would recommend, make sure you work towards increasing your points, because that would definitely benefit you to, have an invitation sooner than later. Because on the current scenario, it looks like they are considering points as an important parameter as well in terms of, giving the invite for engineers. If obviously you haven't mentioned your occupation here, but if that's what your occupation is, or even for that matter, IT applicant, I have not come across any IT applicants, those who have, lesser points than 90, or they're all working towards increasing the points. So that's what I would recommend you as an option as well. We've got Harjil Cruz. Can my employer sponsor me after finishing my diploma? I have 2 years of experience now working in hospitality industry. It was only casual. So Harjil, the requirements for an employer sponsored visa is you have to have a relevant qualification, as well as 2 years of full-time experience to get a normal sponsorship from an employer. Now, you don't have to have that experience with the same employer. You can have it in the past. The department prefers that it should be in the last 5 years. But casual experience may be not counted if it's not meeting the requirements of full-time definition, and it may not work for you. And you have to also look at which occupation we are talking about here, whether the minimum requirement of that occupation is a diploma qualification as well. Because in case if you do not meet the minimum qualification requirements as per ANSCO, then that needs to be substantiated with experience as well in that case. Sai, Kunal, I work in healthcare IT. I'm eligible for 190 with 75, including state nomination points. I'm already having 15 months experience with direct public sector. Sai, you haven't mentioned what is your nominated occupation. So if it's obviously IT, then IT definitely has a lot of occupations. The invitation which they have given in the last one was only to programmers, a developer programmer who got the invites. That was also in the energy sector, which they have specified for the state nomination in Victoria. At 75 points, again, as I said, the chances are going to be not much. Or obviously, if there are people who have got higher points than you, they will definitely be preferred before and over you. So network engineers you mentioned now. So obviously, as a network engineer, the possibility of getting the invitation at 75 looks a little difficult to me in the current situation. So I would recommend you to obviously increase your points. So for section 48 bar, the state hasn't come out openly stating that they are not going to be inviting any section 48 bar applicant. And you could read through in the 11 Victoria as well. Victoria hasn't mentioned anything about that in their section 48 bar. New South Wales as a state also has an option for network engineers if you increase your points and if you intend to move there. So you must be either living there for 3 months or working in your nominated occupation. That could be an option as well for you. All right, so that's, I believe, all for today. You guys have seen, or this video would be staying live for you guys, and you can, as I said before as well, have any sort of questions which relates to student visas, your GTEs, applying for, the COVID visas, which is what, a lot of people are not very clear on what exactly are the requirements. Applying for any skilled migration, employer-sponsored visas, partner visas, family visas, all and all. We've got options and a team of migration agents. We can assist you for every single bit here. And so we'll hope to catch you up on the next live session when we'll have something more to discuss. Until then, take care of yourself, and thank you so much for staying live. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.